Hi everybody, this is Justina with JustynaTHandMade. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to put together the Sakura mini wristlet. This is one of my existing patterns. This pattern comes with the full written tutorials, so you don't need this video to complete your project. In the original pattern, this little wristlet has been created with the woven fabric on the front, and the full back panel was made out of vinyl or cork fabric. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to add the zipper overlay and the D-ring tab overlay, so you can create both outer panels out of a woven fabric. Those two add-ons to the pattern are available for free. You can just download the templates following the link in the description. They are posted on a Google Drive that is accessible to everybody. If you wanna access the full pattern for this Sakura mini wristlet, please follow the link in the description to my Etsy store. Also, I'm gonna post a discount code in my Facebook group. So if you would like to grab the pattern at a discount, there's gonna be a discount code available for limited time after premiere of this video. A couple words about the wristlet itself. It looks tiny, but you can fit everything you need when you're on the go. Here I have my chopstick, and I have my car key. Inside I have my small wallet. This is one of my patterns as well. This is the tiny folded wallet, and I have still space for my phone, and on the side I have my credit cards for a quick access. So as you can see, although the project looks tiny, it's very handy, and it definitely has enough space to be useful on a quick night out, or if you are going to some party and you just don't want to have your huge purse with you. I hope you've been enjoying the tutorials I've been producing for you on my YouTube channel, and if you did and you've been watching them, thank you so much for your support. If you would like me to create more tutorials and to go down the list of my patterns to make sure all of them have video tutorials, your support of the channel would be appreciated. So make sure you are a subscriber. Please leave a thumbs up, interact with the video, so leave a comment. Or if you would like to monetarily support me, you can use the thanks option available on YouTube. And now, if you want to see how this little cutie comes together, please keep watching. To start our project, we're gonna prep all our pattern pieces, and I'm just gonna go through them really quick because you have everything written down in a pattern. I'm just gonna point out the cuts that need to be cut differently than the pattern cut list. So we have our lining pieces, and everything you cut exactly like it is in the lining piece and in the original pattern. So you have the main lining panel, you have your card slot panels that I already prepped and marked, then you have two lining panels for your zipper pocket and two little side panels for your card slot portion of the lining. Then I cut my wristlet strap, and I already pressed it, so you can see it's just a piece of quilted cotton that I pressed in half, and then I folded the raw edges. So when I have it nice and folded, I'm gonna have nice finished edges on both sides. When it comes to the outer panel, so one of the panels you would cut out of the woven fabric, so that's the panel. And then for the front accent, you would have your vinyl or cork material, so that's the front, and your back tag if you're opting in to add it. For the back panel in the pattern, you would cut it out of vinyl or cork. In this version, I'm gonna be using the same woven fabric, and both of them are interfaced identically. So I use SF101, and then I added Sew Fuse Plus, so it's nice and sturdy, and I think the Sew Fuse Plus actually wrinkle less than if you would add a Decovil light, since that's pretty small project. We will have to get it pretty squished to get it through our turning hole. So then, to be able to add our zipper pocket on the back, I have my zipper overlay, and I also have my little D-ring top overlay. So this is different from the original pattern. So for those two elements, I'm gonna show you what my idea was to edit the pattern. Also, I have a little piece of vinyl for my D-ring top. When it comes to supplies, I have my 2 pieces of zipper tape number 5 cut to size. I have 2 zipper pulls, a 1/2 inch D-ring, a 1/2 inch lobster clasp, and I have some rivets to attach my D-ring top, and I'm gonna use some tiny rivets to attach my back tag. So now that we have everything prepped, I'm gonna start with prepping my front panels. Take my front panel, and first, this is optional, but you can add the scalloped edges to your accent pieces, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use this time the 10 millimeters scallop pinking shears to do so. One of the clips is missing, so I'm just gonna describe to you what needs to be done. First step, you're gonna center your small accent piece on the bottom edge of your front panel. You want to make sure that your front panel is the right side up. So if you are using a directional fabric, make sure it's the right way up. Then you're gonna center it along the bottom edge of your front outer panel, and you're gonna take it to the machine and top stitch along those 2 long edges with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that our small panel is attached, we're gonna attach our larger accent panel. So we again can use some double-sided tape. And align with the top edge of our front panel. And now that we have that prepped, we're gonna take it to the machine and we're gonna top stitch along the curved edge. I'm gonna go halfway up through the side edges, but I'm not gonna sew all the way up because I want to trim the top part of my outer panel, so I have less bulk when I'm gonna be attaching my zipper and my lining. So take your project to the machine, top stitch along this edge and about halfway up through the side edges, and then we're gonna trim extra fabric to remove the extra bulk on our front panel. Now that that's done, like I said, I'm gonna trim the outer panel. And now also it's a good time to attach your back tag, so that's what I'm gonna do. Now my front panel is completed. I'm gonna move on to our back panel. So now I'm gonna take my back panel, my back outer panel, and my zipper overlay and my little top overlay, and find the best placement for all the elements. And again, I'm going to be using double-sided tape to help me affix the panels. So I'm going to take my ruler and making sure that my overlay is centered, I'm gonna place it an inch from the top of my panel. So again, make sure if you are using a directional fabric, make sure it's the right way up. Now that we have this placement, we can move on to our D-ring tab. And I'm gonna place it about halfway up from the center of my zipper opening, just almost touching the zipper overlay. I just want to make sure I'm gonna have a seam allowance on both sides, the side and the top edge, from my little tab overlay. And now also we're gonna prep our zipper tab. So you're gonna take the little piece of vinyl and you're gonna fold the long row edges inside. And now that you have your outer back panel prepped and your D-ring tab prepped like this, you're gonna take everything to the machine and you're gonna top stitch the overlay all around the outside edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Also, you're gonna top stitch the D-ring tab all around the outside edge, and you're gonna top stitch the long edges of your D-ring tab. So take everything to the machine and top stitch with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that our overlays are sewn in, we're gonna finish up our D-ring tab. So first we wanna make a little cut. The cut should be a little less than 1/2 inch, and I'm gonna be placing the cut about 1/4 of an inch from the far right edge. So I want it to be in the middle, but I want it to be towards the right edge. And now that I have it cut, I'm gonna insert my D-ring tab. I wanna insert it the wrong side up. I'm gonna insert it about 3/4 of an inch inside, and I'm gonna take the project back to the machine and I'm gonna sew just off the cut edge. So I'm gonna be attaching the D-ring tab to this part of the fabric. So you want to make sure you are sewing on the tab. You can actually sew from this side. You're not gonna see those stitches on this side after the D-ring is installed. So take it to the machine and sew the D-ring tab onto your panel with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you can use 2.5 or 3.5 stitch length. Now that your D-ring tab is sewn in, so now it's attached, you're gonna insert your hardware and again insert the other end of the tab through your slit. pull it pretty close, you're gonna have a good chunk of your tab on the wrong side. And now when you have that all positioned, you're gonna attach the D-ring tab, the other end, with a rivet. So this way we want to aim to have the rivet in the middle of our D-ring tab overlay. Now that the D-ring is attached, the last thing to prep our outer panel is to attach our zipper pocket lining. You can also trim the D-ring tab, it doesn't need to be that long. So now we're gonna take our short zipper piece and our two lining pieces for our pockets. You want to make sure you have the one that are the same size left. And now one piece is going to be a little larger than the other, so you want to place the larger one right side up on your table and clip the zipper tape along the longer edge. Now you're gonna flip that over and repeat that with the smaller lining panel. When you have that prepped, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew the lining panels onto the zipper. So you wanna sew from one side first, making sure you are sewing only through the zipper tape and one lining. When you have that done, you're gonna flip your project over, expose the unsewn edge, and attach the other edge of the zipper to the second lining panel. So now we have our lining attached, and you wanna make sure it looks like this. So you have the wrong side of the zipper at the right side of your lining fabric, and the coil side of your zipper and the wrong side of your lining panels. And now we're gonna attach our zipper pull on, and here's something to keep in mind. I want my zipper pull to be on the right side when the pocket is closed. So the larger panel of the pocket, it's on the back, so I'm gonna be inserting my zipper pull from the left to the right. So if that's something that is important to you, just keep the direction of the zipper pull in mind. So insert your zipper pull the way you want the pocket to close and open. Now that my zipper pull is on, I'm gonna pull it almost to the position in which it's gonna be when the pocket is closed. And now I'm gonna place some double-sided tape along each edge of my zipper tape. So now that I have that prepped, I have to prep my zipper opening. So I'm gonna fold my project in half to be able to cut the outer fabric. And now I'm gonna cut the outer fabric a little larger than my zipper opening in my overlay. So cut the fabric, making sure you are not cutting the overlay, but making sure that the opening in your main fabric is larger than your vinyl overlay. Now that that's done, I'm gonna position my lining inside of my opening. So yet again, you wanna make sure that the bigger lining panel is on top, and you're gonna center the zipper inside of your zipper opening. And now that you have that done, you're gonna take your project back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the zipper opening with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length, making sure that your pocket stays nice and open, so you're not gonna close out your pocket lining while you are sewing it on to your outer panel. After our zipper and our linings are attached, we're gonna finish up our pocket. So you want to bring those two lining panels together and clip them. If one is shorter than the other, you can just compensate for it with the seam allowance, or you can just trim it, whatever you feel comfortable with. And when you have your lining prep like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and sewing from this side. So you're not gonna be sewing through your outer panel. You're gonna sew all around the lining open edges with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance to close your lining pocket. Now our pocket is completed, and so we have our back and our front panels done. Now we're gonna move on to working on our main zipper. So first we want to square off one pair of ends, and I'm gonna use the method with a lighter, but you can definitely take it to the machine and base stitch it. Now that my zipper is prepped, I'm gonna attach it to my front panel. I'm gonna measure 1/2 inch from the left side where my zipper will be closing, and 1.5 inches from side. Now I'm gonna place my zipper and clip it. And mark the 1.5 inch point with a pin. This is where our zipper will slip while we're sewing it on. So you wanna sew your zipper tape on and slip it off at the 1.5 inch mark when you are sewing it on your front panel. So when you have your project prep like this, take it to the machine and base the zipper on, slipping the tail at the 1.5 inch mark. Now that you have the zipper based on to the front outer panel, we're gonna repeat that with our back outer panel. So now you wanna flip your project, make sure that the sides align, and clip the other edge of the zipper to the top edge of your back outer panel. Again, you want to mark the 1.5 inch point, making sure your both sides are right sides together and that you are attaching the zipper to the top edge of your project. You're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna baste the other side of your zipper onto your back outer panel. Now that we have the zipper attached to both our outer panels, we can move on prepping our lining. So first we're gonna prep our card slots. You're gonna refer to the diagram provided in the pattern to mark your lines. It's in the pattern this way, so you're gonna start from the left side and mark your card slot markings. And now we're gonna press the panel so we can top stitch the tops of our card packets. And now that we have our panel pressed, we're gonna take it to the machine and we're gonna top stitch each top of our packet. So top stitch the tops of our card slot packets with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that I top stitch my packets, I also basted the folds on the side. I'm gonna now attach my side panel of my lining. So I take those two small panels. I cut this panel longer to give myself a little room in case my measurements are a little off. So that's something you can do also. So this way I'm sure I'm gonna have enough space to attach my side panels. And then after I sew them on, I'm gonna trim the extra fabric. So now I'm gonna clip each of the side panels on each side of my card slots. Now that it's clipped, I'm gonna take it back to the machine and I'm gonna sew each side at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure I'm back stitching on the beginning and on the end of the seam. Now that both side panels are sewn in, I'm gonna trim my extra fabric. And now I'm gonna press my unit. And after pressing it, I'm gonna take it back to the machine and I'm gonna top stitch along this seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now both panels should be the same size, and mine is. If you're afraid that you may not keep the seam allowances the way it should be, you can cut those panels a little larger too, and then after you put this part of the lining together, you can trim it to the size of your other lining panel. So that's just a tip if you're afraid that your seam allowances might be a little off and the panel will not come out the exact size needed. So now that we have both our lining panels ready, we're gonna move on to attaching our lining to our main unit. Now we're gonna split our outer panels, and I like my card slot packets to be on the back of my wristlet. So I'm gonna pair the plain lining panel with the front and the lining panel with my card slot with the back panel. And now I'm gonna place them right sides together, making sure that my packets are facing up. And here you want to make sure your zipper tail is out of the way of your seam. You want to make sure that you're not gonna sew it all the way through. Now you're gonna repeat that with the front panel. Since the lining is plain, it's easier. When you have your both panels prepped like this, you're gonna take the project to the machine and you're gonna sew along the top edge to attach your lining to the outer panels, making sure that your zipper is slipped on the tail ends on both front and back panel. Now that you have the linings attached to both outer panels, we're gonna flip the panels over, and you can press the seams. You want to expose the zipper. You can finger press it, or you can press it with the iron. Just be very careful because you are working with vinyl, so press from the lining side of your project. And now that you have it pressed, you're gonna take those two units to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the top seam. I'm gonna pull my lining out of the way of the seam, but I want to make sure that my seam allowance stays behind the outer panel. So when I'm top stitching through the folded seam allowance and the outer panel, but I have my lining open. This way it's going to be easier for us to match those points on our final seam, and because we are using woven material for the lining, we can just press it nicely so it's gonna lie nice and flat inside. I'm gonna do the same thing on this front panel, so I'm gonna make sure my seam allowance is behind my outer panel, and I'm gonna top stitch with my lining open along the zipper seam. So take both to the machine and top stitch along the zipper seam. Now that we have our panels top stitched, we're gonna put the project together. So you're gonna match the right side of the outer panels and just make sure you are matching the place where the lining meets the outer panels. So you want to make sure you have it aligned here. Keep the zipper out of the way. And now clip the project all around. And now when you have your project prepped like this, you wanna mark an opening in the bottom of your lining. And now we are ready to put our project together. So you're gonna take this to the machine and you're gonna sew from the top to the bottom, and I would do the same on the other side to make sure you have a nice alignment at the point of the lining and exterior fabric meeting together. So from the top to the bottom, the top to the bottom, and the bottom seam. And when you have that done, then you're gonna move on to the lining and sew the lining from the top to the bottom up to the marked opening. So backstitch well in those two places, and you can increase the seam allowance on the lining slightly going towards the bottom, so you have a tighter fit inside of your back. Now that your project is sewn all around, we're gonna box our corners. You can box the corners or you can skip that step, but if you are not boxing your corner, just make sure you're gonna trim the seam allowances at the corners so you have a nice sharp corners on your project. I'm gonna box my corners. I'm gonna do them at 3/8 of an inch. When you have all your corners prepped like this, take it to the machine and sew along the open edges. You can keep the seam allowance on the outside fabric at 1/4 of an inch and increase the seam allowance on your lining to 3/8 of an inch. Now that you have your corners boxed and I trim my seam allowance a little bit, I'm gonna turn my project right side out, making sure I'm opening the seam on the side. And now you can inspect your project, make sure everything looks good, make sure all your seams are pushed out, and if you're pleased with how everything is looking, take your lining out, fold the raw edges inside, when you have that folded, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew to close the opening in the lining with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 or 3.5 stitch length. Now that my lining is completed, I close the opening in the bottom. Now I'm gonna finish up my zipper. So first I'm gonna insert my zipper pull. I want to make sure that my zipper gonna be nice and straight, so I want to make sure that the front ends meet nicely in the same place. And now I'm gonna insert my zipper pull. Now that I'm happy how the zipper closes on the front. I'm gonna figure out what length of the zipper I want on the tail end. I think I'm gonna cut it to about 1.5 inches. In the pattern, I'm showing you how to add a tab made out of vinyl, but on this project I'm just gonna use the pre-made metal zipper end cap. And now, after my zipper is completed, the last thing to do is to finish up our wristlet strap. So you're gonna take your fabric cut to the size for the wristlet strap. You're gonna press it in half and then use that crease to press the 2 raw edges inside, and yet again press it in half. Then you're gonna take your clasp and insert it. You're gonna open the fabric and you're gonna place it right sides together. You wanna make sure it's not twisted on the way. And now take it to the machine and sew along this edge, the short edge, with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 or 2.5 stitch length to connect our ends of our wristlet strap. Now that those two ends are connected, you can trim the seam allowance on the corner, so there's gonna be less bulk. Open the seam allowance and refold your strap. And when you have your strap prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along both edges, starting with the one that has the opening, moving your clasp along as you sew. So take it to the machine and top stitch along those two folded edges. Now that you have the wristlet strap top stitch, bring the clasp to where the connecting seam is, and now you can create the loop by sewing a seam about 1/2 inch away from the clasp, or you can install a rivet. I'm gonna install a rivet. And now the wristlet strap is ready to be clipped on your wristlet. And with that, your project is now completed. Your project is now completed. Your Sakura mini wristlet is ready to use. On the back you have a zipper pocket that can fit your car key, a chopstick, and inside you have space for some credit cards, and still you're gonna be able to fit a small wallet and your phone. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're gonna give the project a go. If you would like to get the pattern, just follow the link in the description below to my Etsy store. If you do make one of those Sakura wristlets, please make sure to share your creation with me. You can post it in my Facebook group or tag me on Instagram. Links to both are also in the description box below. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Till the next time.